Welcome back to Bridal University. I'm Ebony.
And I'm Zoe.
Episode 7.
Seven's my lucky number, so I
Is
have a good feeling about this.
It's going to be a great episode.
Yeah. Seven's my lucky number. Whenever anybody's like, pick a number, 1 through 10, it's 7.
Yeah,
so
7 is a good
I'm really
number.
excited about this.
It's a good episode, y'all. So
Yeah.
get ready.
Get ready. Last week we also had a good episode. We're filming them back to back because they're similar topics. So we already have that good energy from the last episode. It's going to carry over into this one.
And make sure you go back and watch last week's episode too, because we were dropping gems. That was a good episode.
Big tips. So if you're someone looking to plan a wedding, but you have a really tight budget, that's a good episode to watch. And even if you don't have a tight budget and you just want to maybe find some ways to save, it's a great little episode to listen to.
Learn a lot.
All right, there was another report due this week, so this one's...
That one's thick.
Yeah, this one's thick. This one is all about wedding vendors and kind of a general idea of all of that information, how you should be talking to them, questions you should be asking, and just kind of where to start because there's so much.
So much. And going off of our question from last week, you want to revisit that?
If you didn't watch last week's episode, we ended by asking on whether it's worth it to hire a wedding planner. I spoke a little briefly on the topic. Ebony said if she was to get married, she would not have a wedding planner. I don't think personally I would either, but I understand the need for a wedding planner for people who live really busy lives outside of, wedding planning. So if somebody has a really busy work schedule or they can't always, find times to meet down and sit with vendors and get all their information or research, wedding planners can be really good for that. So I'm going to read this right here. This is from our sponsor again from today, Wedding Realm. It's from one of their blogs. So this is what a wedding planner is. Wedding planners assist in the entire wedding process. They can help discuss your vision, draft contracts for the vendors you choose, and even coordinate the big day. They can either help throughout the whole process or pick up the slack where it's needed. So that's a little basic thing about it, but I think the big takeaway from there is, discussing your vision, getting contracts, which I know a lot of people can struggle with. I mean, do you think you would know how to draft up a contract?
I mean, just because, lately I've been adulting, doing adult things, selling houses and, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I guess the older you get used to contracts. So, I know it sounds, pretty scary, but I just think that if it's, well written and, able to, be understood, then I think it's fine.
Yeah.
But
So it depends on your knowledge. If you've never had to deal with a contract before or are scared to, a wedding planner might be good for you. But then also here it says that they can help either throughout the whole process or pick up the slack where it's needed. So if you still want to be a part or a big part of your wedding planning, but there are some small details and stuff that, maybe you don't have time to do, you hire somebody and they can help you where it's needed. All right, next thing, let's see. This is the average cost of a wedding planner. It varies on state, location, everything like that. But it says, according to many studies, couples will spend roughly $1,000 to $2,500 on a wedding planner, but they can range anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000.
I guess it's just depending on kind of how you were talking about the last episode on what you need them to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's just looking over the contracts, if you want them to be there that day and literally going over everything and just being there to guide everyone through the day. So that makes sense because they can play multiple roles.
Yeah, and I think every wedding planner is a bit different in what they do.
What they offer.
Some only want to do the whole thing. They won't, do things here and there. Some don't mind doing things here and there. It all depends because some of them only sell packages, I do the whole wedding for this amount, or some are hourly, this is, what I can do and this is my hourly rate. So it depends on who you meet. Like I said, too, location. If you're looking to get a wedding planner in New York, that might be very different from somewhere in I don't know.
Carolina.
Yeah, somewhere different, or even in rural locations, you might find different pricing. So those are all things to consider, what you need and how often you'll need it, things like that. Definitely discuss it with your partner and who you're planning the wedding with, because, you know, they might not be able to pick up as much as you think that they might if they have a busy schedule coming up or things like that. It's always good to discuss. Open communication.
Yeah. I think sometimes the bride will depend on like a maid of honor, like a matron of honor a little bit more, and kind of, but like you're saying, if they have that busy schedule, if they're like, you know, moms, or if they're like anything like that, you may want to have, you know, just a backup person who can like do it 24/7 around the clock. So.
Yeah. Or someone who you can text and they would know about a random question.
Yeah.
Another thing that wedding planners come with is references. They know people, they've worked in weddings for X amount of years, so they've probably met a lot of different DJs. They've probably been to a lot of different venues. They probably hired a lot of different photographers. Or maybe they have some, you know, tried and true ones that they keep going back to. So if you have nowhere to start as far as references or vendors to find, a wedding planner can kind of be like your guru for all of that.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to consider too. So in this blog, it has a list of questions that might come in handy when hiring or talking to a wedding planner. So I'll go through all the questions and we can discuss. But how many weddings have you planned? That's obviously a good one if someone has only planned one wedding.
And you're charging me like
Yeah.
$50 an hour, and it's like, let me see your portfolio.
Yeah. So definitely think about that. You know, how many weddings have they performed? Does it make sense for the amount that they're asking for? You know, weigh it yourself. Next question, do you have testimonials or photos of previous clients and their events? You said a portfolio, kind of show me your work. If you're a wedding planner and you're showing pictures and it's just a backyard with a bunch of folding tables and white tablecloths on top, you know, that'll tell the bride what services you can do. Next question, how often would we need to meet and communicate? That's a big one.
That's a good question.
Because it needs to work with your schedule, and it needs to work with the wedding planner schedule. So like I said, if you're one of those busy brides or busy couples, and you got a lot of planning going on, and a lot of work going on, you got to find time to have a meeting to discuss what's getting done and what needs to get done. So it needs to be able to fit in both of your schedules. So
and make sure that it's enough meetings where you're also getting what you need as well. Like
exactly.
So.
Okay. Next question. Do you work with a team or run these events alone? That's a big deal.
That's a good question.
Because if you're hiring a team, so like 5 people with a head wedding planner, that might cost a lot more than just a single person who's running around like an assistant role kind of thing.
And also, too, like, what does your team offer? You know, like, are you all going to be present on my wedding day? Is there someone that's going to be hosting? Is there someone that's going to be organized? Like, that's good to know as well.
Are all the team members necessary for my wedding, with my budget, with everything that I'm working with?
Yeah.
So that's a good question. And then, can we view your contract? So that doesn't mean necessarily you want to sign the contract, but you definitely want to look over any contracts, make sure that all the policies align with what you need and what is good. So
there's like an hour minimum or, you know, something like that, because you definitely got to read it through and make sure that it aligns with everything that you all are speaking about.
Yeah. Sometimes contracts can get wordy and you don't want to be put into a position where you say, okay, I think I do want to hire you as my wedding planner, and then you read the contract, and then you're starting to be like, oh, maybe I don't.
So you're obligated to, you know.
Yeah.
Just be careful.
Yep. All right. So now we're going to move on to vendors. Venues. Sorry, not vendors. We're talking about vendors already. But hopefully all that information helped you kind of decide whether you think a wedding planner is worth it or not for you. If you're looking for a wedding planner, you can go to Wedding Realm and search by your location and find them in your area. That's a great thing about Wedding Realm. So as I'm saying all these different vendors here, you can go search there and find all of them. So yay. All right, this is inexpensive wedding venues. So we kind of talked about this last time, how to get the best deals with venues and how to make things work. So that's that. But this is a little different. This is about like if you're actually getting a venue, because there's different packages and things you can do. So some venues are only all inclusive, so it includes food, lodging, the actual wedding, the ceremony, reception, all of that. That's going to cost a lot of money because that's including like so much. But if you just need the venue just for the ceremony or just for the reception, that'll change the cost because, you know, if you have people that are able to cook the food for you for a more reasonable price than the venue, that's something good. That's something to consider. Or if you have your own DJ instead of the venue's DJ, but you also have to check and make sure that they allow you to bring in outside people. Yeah. So definitely talk with your venues and tell them your expectations. Don't just be like, oh, I love this place so much. I'm just going to do it because I love it and, you know, I'll make it work.
A waterfront, like, let's sign me up. Like, make sure that, like you're saying, you're not, you're getting everything you need, but also not paying, you know, too much for some things that they offer that you may not need. So
yeah. Another thing too is the size of your wedding. If you only have 100 guests and the venue that you're renting out is for 500 people, it might be better to find a venue that will better fit your guests. It'll save you money, and it also won't look so empty. Yeah,
for like in your pictures and like your videos, it's gonna like you're gonna be echoing like across the room talking to people and like. Yeah, that's a definite way to save money. Like, make sure your space fits the people. Like,
yeah, because some people want those luxurious big ballrooms, but if you only have 100 people in one of those, you might look a little empty, small and empty in there. Okay, moving on to more things. Oh my gosh, this is crazy right here. Did you know in 2020 the average cost per guest was around $447?
Per
guest. So I don't know if that includes like their, you know, the venue cost and everything for the amount of guests that you have.
But still, that's a lot. What are you feeding these people? Like lobster?
Well, I guess it's like food.
Yeah. Like
and then drinks.
Drinks and like they just like totaled everything.
And
like,
the venue, yeah.
That's still like, that's insane.
Yeah. So when we were talking last week about plus ones, yeah, if you can cough up $447, you can bring a plus one from some random app you met.
And that's funny because you hear things and you see things like family stories of like people like literally falling out because they were mad that they couldn't bring a plus one. And like, it's like, okay, well, if you look at the math and you do like, do the research, you'll understand why. It was not personal. Why you could not bring that plus one.
If you want to bring that plus one so badly, you can cough up the extra money to bring them. That's my opinion. If it's no plus ones and you're really wanting to bring someone,
ask the bride, the groom, the partners, how much do I need to pay so I can bring my plus one? Maybe they've changed their mind, you know? I don't know.
All right. Interesting. So this whole blog that I'm reading from is based on the state of Connecticut because that's where we're located. So just kind of giving an idea for our area. But for those of you outside of Connecticut, this might be a little different. But it said the average cost for venues can range from $1,000 to $10,000 plus.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily. I can just in my head think of the ones from like the 1,000
all the way to the 10,000. Yeah. It says here, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will know this, I'm sure we all know this, but that if you are trying to save on venues, to consider a religious venue. We kind of, I think, touched on this a little bit last week, but it's really a better budget option to do it at a religious place. If you're not religious, obviously that wouldn't probably be something that you would want to do, but if you are a member of any religion or have been, on and off and you still want to, do a religious venue, that's always a great option because those can cost anywhere, it says, from $5,000 to $3,000. So a big cut in price. And most times at that point, you don't have to go out and hire an officiant. Usually the religious venues provide their own officiant.
And also look it up if you're a part of like that organization or the church. Sometimes for the members, they provide the church or, for free.
Yeah.
So, and then your pastor, your bishop, or, whoever your religious leader is, would just be your officiant. And you can save a lot like that. So
Yeah. So if that's an option for you and you're trying to be budget friendly and trying to make everything work, that might be a good option looking into. Maybe it's not you who's a part of the organization. Maybe it's your future spouse or their parents or something like that. But there's always a way to find, something that will work for the both of you.
yeah.
All right. The next vendor is going to be our favorite, something we're very familiar with, wedding and bridal salons. We know a lot about those.
That's when you get to meet the lovely stylist.
Yeah. So we've already talked about this a bunch. I'm just going to run through it. Doing all the proper research before you go to a salon, looking up stores to see if they carry what you're looking for, calling the stores if you need to be like, do you have this style or this style? Maybe not a specific dress per se, but do you carry mermaids? Do you carry a dress with like a clean look and a belt or something like that? So you know that when you're going there, you're going to find what you're looking for. And it says, once you find 1 to 3 places to visit, book those appointments and gather your I-Do crew. So I think that's about right. That's kind of what we said before,
kind of
1 to 3.
said. Definitely, sorry.
No, you go.
Definitely just make sure you, kind of like what Zoe was saying, do your research and just go in there knowing kind of where you want to start. You don't have to know where you're going to finish, but just know where you want to start.
Yeah. It helps you a lot. Like I said last week, Pinterest. Get Pinterest and plan out all your stuff so you can show your vendors what you're looking for, especially if you are looking for a wedding dress. It's really awesome for us to have photo references instead of people coming and being like, I saw this dress and it had this like shape like this, and they'll be like marking it out with their hands, and then they're like, and beading, and like kind of had a this pattern. It's like,
kind of looks like this dress, but nothing like this dress because I don't like this dress. Oh, okay.
Oh, but yeah, photos help.
Yes.
They help. Okay. Now the actual wedding dresses, not just the salons. So the average cost for a keyword luxury wedding dress nowadays is $2,000 to $4,000. So if you're looking for beaded, if you're looking for design, details, all of that is a luxury dress. And any salon that isn't like a chain store is most likely luxury, unless it's like a consignment, anything like that. Your typical small mom and pop wedding dress store is mostly luxury gowns. So that would be the price range.
How much was that again?
$2,000 to $4,000.
Okay.
It says previously in years past, brides would spend about $1,700 on a gown, which I guess is fair. But like we've talked about before, COVID, inflation, all of that has changed how much wedding dresses cost.
Everything and everywhere. Everywhere.
Another thing, a lot of these places don't include alterations. So alterations are usually an extra cost. That's something to keep in mind. Don't think you're going to be getting a wedding dress and alterations in a package deal.
Yeah.
Just go in with that mindset, and if you find out that the salon you're working with does have that, then be super excited and surprised and happy. But I'd say pretty often alterations are a separate cost from the gown.
I don't know how often I hear that they're even packaged together.
No, I don't either. It's not like when you go buy a prom dress at like those pop-up shops in the mall, and then they're like, okay, your alterations will be right now, and we're gonna do them for free. Like,
go ahead and hop in the dressing room. Like, no,
not happening. So it says here, depending on what needs to be done to alter your dress, that it can be anywhere from $150 to $700. I personally think that's a little low. I think alterations are tending to be a little bit higher now, just because of the cost of materials, the labor that the seamstresses often do. It really depends on where you go and how much needs to be done to your dress, and if you're getting anything customized. So let's use the example, like if you have a dress and you want to add a bunch of extra lace to it, that's a customization, and usually that's going to cost more because it's extra work that the seamstress has to do. It's more finer detail stuff. So I'd say expect to pay a little bit more than that.
Yeah, especially depending on the dress that you're looking for. Like some dresses you can do a clean hem. Some dresses you do have to take off lace and the details if there's like the beading at the end and the edge of the gown. Some seamstress do charge more for that, so just keep that in mind as well too.
Yeah. I think definitely just what the dress is in general. If you have a big sparkly studded dress, that's going to be obviously a lot more work than a fitted, clean gown. So just keep that in mind. And if you're someone who wants to include the, quote, cost of your dress, meaning the dress and the alterations, be apparent with that at your appointments. You know, my budget is $3,000, but I want that to include alterations and my dress. Bam. That's it. All right. Next vendor is bartending. We talked a little bit about open bars and bartending last time, but this is a little bit more in depth. So I'm going to read this little passage here. The average cost for an open bar with a bartender fee is around $3,000. On average, if you allow any kinds of alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, you can expect to pay around $35 a person. We advise if you're working on a smaller budget to only allow wine and beer, bringing the cost down to nearly $20 per person. So, that's something to think about, right?
Yeah, something to think about.
Is it worth the extra $15 a person to do the open bar? Or do you really need to cut cost and do the wine and beer and just pay $20 a person?
Yeah.
Something to consider, for
Definitely. Sure. That's the easy way to me to cut costs right there.
Yeah.
You know?
The statistics are right there. They tell you, you know, what you need and what you don't need. And just that average cost in total, $3,000. It's a lot.
It's a lot of money for something
that's just drinks.
Just drinks.
Yeah. It's a lot. Okay. Next part of this is the cost of just a bartender alone. So you can expect to pay anywhere from $50 to $230 an hour depending on the size of your event. And that doesn't include tip. So you should always tip anybody who's doing service like that. It's just a courtesy, something you should do, especially if you are having a large wedding party. You can expect to tip anywhere from 10 to 20%, it says. So I just think that's fair because, you know, yes, that person is getting paid, but there is a lot of labor in that, and sometimes there are extra people to pay. So if it's the bartender, but also servers bringing the drinks out, they have to be able to tip out to their servers. So that's a big thing I think a lot of people don't think about is that, you know, the tips aren't all going to one person sometimes, and sometimes they're split. So, but keep that in mind. And if you aren't willing to pay this, don't hire a bartender. Don't cut somebody short just because it's not in your budget. Just do wine and beer at that point. You know, there's other ways to make your wedding cheaper than.
Yeah, that was so funny. You're not willing to pay? Don't do it.
Don't do it. Sorry. I'm very brutally honest, guys, sometimes. I know we talked about brutal honesty in one of our episodes, but
that's Zoe.
I'm being serious. As someone who does like photography and art and things like that, you know?
Yeah.
It's really disappointing when somebody wants this like high quality thing, but they don't want to pay.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, I'd rather not do the job than make my work less valuable. So something to think about from a different perspective. Like if you were, let's say, a nurse and you were working, you know, with a patient and you had this really tough patient that you had to do all this extra stuff for them and do all these extra labs, but you got half the pay that you normally would just because somebody complained, like, would that make your job be worth any less? No, but it still cuts you down, which is it hurts. So
no, I definitely feel you. I think just knowing you was just so funny the way you said it. It was hilarious.
All right, let's go on to the next vendor, which is wedding cake and desserts.
Ooh, my favorite.
I love cake. What's your favorite kind of cake?
Red velvet.
You're gonna either really judge me or understand, and I feel like you're gonna judge me. My favorite kind of cake is carrot cake.
So that is also my favorite kind of cake, but I don't like everyone's carrot cake, so I don't say carrot cake anymore because, funny story, really quick. Someone got me a carrot cake for my birthday, and I hated it because it was the type of carrot cake that I don't like, so I'm like really picky about my carrot cake. So my favorite type of cake is carrot cake, but because I don't eat everyone's carrot cake, I say red velvet. So, but I'm not judging you because that's also, but I'm just picky about my carrot cakes.
I agree. I feel like some carrot cakes I get, and if they're not like moist, if they're like a dry carrot cake, I can't do it.
This literally was like the driest.
It becomes like one of those fruit loaves, you know?
Yes.
That they do at Christmas.
It's like shreds of carrots in there, and I'm just like, no,
not
like,
done right.
This is not it. So it's funny. I knew when you're like, oh, because people judge me too. But yeah, I settle for red velvet because I can't find a good carrot cake these days. So if you have one and you come across one, let me know.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
For your birthday.
Yes.
All right, so to get back on track here. So I'm going to read a little bit from here and then we can discuss. So it says, if you are on a tight budget and want an extravagant cake, you might have to set aside more money than you think. Smaller budgets often mean simpler cakes. Mm-hmm. Discussing options and pricing is never a bad idea. An average price for a cake would be nearly $500, but some vary depending on size and detail. Some cakes can even be near the $1,000 mark if you want a large, detailed cake. Fair enough. I mean, that makes sense. If you're just getting a white cake.
None of that surprised me. Like,
no.
that makes... Because, like, you see these cakes sometimes, they're just, like, simple and it has the flowers on it. You're like, okay. But I've also seen the wedding cakes that have, like, the rock crystals and, like, just crazy stuff.
Yeah, and like, sculptures of the bride and groom handmade, like...
Yeah, and you're like, oh, yeah, they paid some money for that cake.
Yeah. So definitely think about, if you want a white cake with some cute little sparkles on it, that's probably not going to cost you a lot.
Yeah.
But if you want the most decadent, glitzed out, chocolate ganache, sugar-coated cake...
Half the time that stuff doesn't even taste good.
No. Like, especially after being sitting out all night.
Yeah, and then you put, like, diamonds and rhinestones and stuff. And then people take the, like, top layer and they save it and they freeze it and do nothing with it. Have you seen people do that?
What?
Yeah. Like, I've seen people, like, at birthday parties and, like, stuff like that. Like, if they have, like, a part of the cake that's, like, decorated or has their name on it or, like, a specific thing that they like on it, they'll take it, cut it, no one can eat that piece, and then they freeze it.
What's the point? It's a cake. You're supposed to eat it.
My point exactly. All right.
Anyways, that's really interesting. I've never heard of that. I'd maybe save, like, if somebody did, like, a fondant sculpture of me from that, like, dough material, like, maybe that one piece, but not the whole top layer of the cake.
And then I've heard someone like, oh, we're gonna unfreeze it for our anniversary and, like, eat it. And, like, you're not gonna eat a year-old cake. That's not okay.
I mean, like, you can't even keep chicken in the freezer for longer than 3 months before it gets bad. What do you mean you're gonna eat a whole cake after
It's not funny, huh?
It's funny weird. I don't know. If you guys are cake freezers, leave a comment on our YouTube.
There's someone out there that probably like, I know what she's talking about. I know someone who did that. Yes, that's a thing. I've seen it done. So
right.
Moving on.
Moving on to florists.
Ooh,
we talked about this 2 episodes ago, where I said you wouldn't believe how much flowers cost because they're crazy expensive.
They are. Just to, like, I hate to, like, be a pessimist, but, like, just to die.
Just to die?
I'm sorry. But, like, after your wedding, all these... I'm, like, I don't want to ruin anyone's. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I get what you mean, because it's like, when you buy a car and the value just depreciates from there.
Literally.
Flowers will do that in a week.
Like, literally, like, you buy, imagine all these beautiful flowers and, like, table arrangements.
I mean, some people press them, too. Like, they save them in some ways.
But how, are you going to do, like, all the flowers from your wedding? Probably, like, your bouquet.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, these are things to think about, people.
Yeah, fake flowers last forever.
You can repurpose them.
Yeah.
You can make a pillow out of them, a wreath out of them.
Let me lay on my pillow of flowers.
I'm just saying. You know those pillows you see at TJ Maxx?
Oh, yeah.
Where they have you use them for decoration?
Or like us. For those of you who are on our YouTube, we made a little background piece that we never ended up putting in our space because it's not wide enough. But we made a little floral arrangement on a mannequin that we have.
You can do this with your flowers after if they are. Are those silk? Are they called like silk?
Some of them are. Some of them are really high quality, and some of them are just
Yeah.
like from the dollar store.
But like the blue ones.
Oh yeah, the
they're
blue ones.
pretty. Like
They're almost like foam,
yeah,
but they work.
There's some nice artificial flowers that you can get
Yeah.
that will do the job. So
Yep. So that's our take on flowers.
Yep.
But let's talk about price of flowers instead of just our opinions on them. So it says, when pricing your budget for florals, you want to set aside at least 10% of your budget. Yes, really, 10%. Flowers range anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000 depending on the size of your wedding. As mentioned previously, the time of year can be a huge part of pricing regarding flowers. For example, lilies are a beautiful summer flower, but if you want them to be a part of your fall wedding, the cost can exponentially grow the further you get away from their bloom times. I know, right?
you already know my take on it. So
On flowers?
yep, I'll leave it right there. I won't say another word because I feel like somewhere a bride is like she's ruining my flower dreams for my wedding. So
Flower dreams for a wedding.
I don't
Anyways,
do that
but
anymore.
think about that. I think I said, research what's in bloom. But yeah. Hi guys, it's time to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, Wedding Realm. Wedding Realm is a comprehensive directory of wedding vendors that keeps growing daily. They help people visualize their wedding like never before. On Wedding Realm, you are able to discover esteemed small businesses that may be hard to find, as well as large, well-known establishments. You can use this website to help plan your wedding, find vendors, and for those of you that are vendors out there, you can use this to connect with people searching for you. A huge thank you to Wedding Realm for sponsoring this video, and now we're going back to the podcast. So, the next vendor that I'm a little bit more familiar with, and that there might be some secrets coming up with, is photographers and videographers. So, photographers and videographers are usually a really big part of the wedding because obviously you need pictures to remember the big day. I feel like everybody has a photographer at their wedding, or at least someone taking pictures. But if you want high resolution, you don't have to worry, about anybody capturing the right thing. You want to hire somebody that is a wedding photographer, not just somebody who does like landscape photography only.
Portrait photography.
You want people like that, not somebody who takes pictures of trees and stuff. I mean, maybe if they have some experience and they, can do a good job, but definitely do your research. Definitely talk about what is doable, because if you get someone that shoots landscapes a lot, they might not know how to pose people. And that's a really big part, especially if a bride or two, oh my gosh. If the bride and groom or the spouses have a hard time posing or being not so awkward with photos, it's kind of makes it more awkward if the photographer also doesn't know how to pose you or put you in the right positions. So that's like a huge thing, I think.
Yeah, and I was also going to say, I had a friend that was a photographer back in the past, and her friend asked her to do her wedding, and because she thought she was a photographer, my friend was like, oh yeah, I'm a photographer, I know how to take pictures, I'll do your wedding. And she was saying how hard it was because there were moments that she didn't think about capturing, that she felt bad as a photographer. Like you're just used to walking around taking pictures, and she's like, I miss so many moments because I wish that, and she was also a friend that hadn't been to a lot of weddings as well, which I feel didn't help her either. But I just think that's the difference between a photographer and a wedding photographer, someone who kind of, I hate to sound so serious, but studies weddings. You need to have someone who knows those moments, what to look for and where to position themselves and how to catch that moment. So I think that's why it's smart to hire a wedding photographer and not someone who's a real estate photographer, just a portrait photographer, someone like that, someone who's literally understands the flow of weddings and
someone who understands the importance of background pictures as much as the candids, because a lot of times they're like, oh, wait, we have no pictures of the centerpieces. It's only pictures of the bride and groom. We have no pictures of our guests. It's only pictures of the bride and groom. or a bride and bride, a groom and groom. Like, there's only pictures of the married couple, whereas
Yeah.
like the rest of the party. And I think if you're just hiring someone randomly who like only takes photos every now and again, or trust me, I work on Instagram.
Yeah.
I do so many photos.
It's not gonna work.
No, it's
Yeah.
so different, and you kind of gotta know like where to capture those little moments. If you're someone who, no, if you're looking for a photographer and you're someone who just wants like plain, easygoing photos, like it looks like all the other bridal photos. You don't want somebody that's like in artsy, like I want to get creative shots,
I want to like change the contrast.
Yeah, I want a
and,
lens
like,
flare and like
want,
all this stuff. So
yeah, no.
definitely like discuss,
Your vision and
Yeah.
like make sure you look at their work and like see, is that what you see for your pictures and your memories, like because I think we didn't, but you also don't want to hire a photographer who like has a set image and like a set look and then be like, yeah, I see that this is what your work looks like, but I like this. Well, that might
Yeah,
be...
I think we did talk about this 2 episodes ago.
You cut that whole part out. So we talked about it, but we didn't put it in the episode.
Oh, okay. So wait, start over. I'll pretend like
That's why I
didn't.
stopped.
Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot to.
So also make sure like when you're picking your photographer that you also look at their work, that you're become familiar with their style, and do they like moody pictures? Do they use bright? Do they like play with the contrast? Like make sure that is in alignment to like what you want.
Yeah. I think that's something really huge to talk about, even just vendors in general. Don't go in like to any vendor and being like, oh, I know that you guys only do like really light and delicate stuff, but I'm more of like a dark, grungy type of person, so can you change your whole style just for me? Don't expect that. It's not going to happen that way. It's the same thing with any artist too. If an artist is known for doing,
Pop art.
don't ask them to do realism because you're not going to get what you want.
Yeah,
So
that's not there. And I think like when you're not in that field, you just see it as art. Oh, it's art. Oh, it's photography. But that's why you have to do your research and like make sure that you come familiar with these things,
Yes.
because you don't want, to expect something that's just not someone's, forte. So
yeah. A good place to always look for references with photographers is Instagram. So if you look at either local bridal pages, stores, things like that, social media, any of that really, to find references, to find pictures, to find examples, all of that's great. But let's talk a little bit about budgeting and what to expect. And there's like varying prices, but I've seen the highest average being $3,500 and the other averages being around like $2,500, so that's like an average range. It also depends too if it's one photographer or multiple, because a lot of places that do weddings will have 2-3 photographers depending on the size of the wedding, how long the wedding is, if they need people to be able to take breaks. I went to a wedding once where there were 2 photographers and there was one person doing just the bride and groom, and then the other people were doing the candids and all of that stuff. So sometimes, that might be a better option if you have a bigger group and a more like, I don't know, filled event, so that the photographer isn't like, oh my god, I gotta go over here, I gotta go over here, I gotta, so it makes it a bit easier if you hire maybe more of a team. So just be prepared for that cost, be prepared for that price. Just remember, I think a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot, I think people sometimes forget all the back end stuff that comes with photography.
Editing.
Because they're there, yeah, sure, for 4 or 5 hours at the actual wedding just taking pictures, but in that time they've taken thousands of photos, if like not sometimes 10,000 photos, and they have to sort through every single photo, make sure it's not blurry, make sure no one's doing anything weird in the background, make sure that you could see everything clearly. That's a lot to sift through. And then on top of that, once they narrow down like to a quarter or half of those photos, they have to edit all of them.
Yep.
And edit out things or airbrush stuff. So there's a lot of work. I did a photo shoot for my job here, and we had about 3 models, and I took around 900 photos. and I think only 95 came from all of those, and it took me a while to sort through. It did, but I like to just sit down and get it all done at once. That's not everybody's method, but I like to just sit and do it all at once. So I went through sorted, delete, sorted, delete, sorted, delete, edited. So it takes a while, and it's just very blah after a while. So just understand that the cost is worth it, even if you might not be seeing everything that's happening.
Yeah. And to me, photography is one of those things that is like an afterthought, because you're so worried about that day and like the cake and the hair and the makeup and the dress. But like those photos are the thing that like you get to walk away with and have for life. Like they're timeless. So think about the cake that's going to get eaten. Think about the flowers that are going to die.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I personally would want to use my budget for my photographer, because that's going to capture my whole day for years and like memories to come. So
another vendor that has been really big lately is videographers. So that was kind of not so common, or it'd be like one person putting a tripod in the corner of the room and just videoing a few moments, or videoing the ceremony and then the first dance or something like that. But now videography is kind of becoming this big, massive industry. And doing weddings is becoming more popular. People want like movies out of their weddings. About 42% of millennials are hiring videographers for their weddings. So it's starting to be a much bigger industry than it was. And those can tend to be pricey. It's coming from someone that does all of this video editing and video capture and all of that stuff. It can be a lot of work. It's a little bit different than a photographer, so you're just kind of getting those bigger moments, some moments here and there. It's not less, but it is videos rather than, hundreds of photos. So it's a little bit different, and it also depends on what you want. If you're looking for like a professional movie, that's a completely different price than, a 15-minute small video where it just captures all those moments. Or if you're someone who wants the like trailer, I've seen like wedding trailers and stuff like that now, which I think I've seen them and they were like so cute.
They're cute. Really
like sweet. So it all depends on what you want, but the average from what I've seen in my research is about $2,000.
And I can see it now becoming more trendy just because of social media and reels. And that's where I usually see them. And they're so cute, like you said. So I can see why it's becoming popular.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I know we didn't cover every vendor, but we tried to cover some big ones. So we hope that will at least help you get started on your journey.
For sure.
And if you need more help with your journey, or you need to find specific vendors, please head over to our sponsor, Wedding Realm. They are great. If you're someone that's looking for, flowers, you can search florists in your area. So you click on the little florist, and then you search the area that you're looking for, and then you could find it, and it'll bring up all these different florists in your area that you can call and contact and email and all that great stuff. And they have so many different vendor types, so even if you're looking for spas, if you're looking for transportation, things like that. So it's got everything in there.
It's like a wedding.
Yeah, it's like its own little mini wedding planner.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like one-stop shop.
Yep, exactly. So if you enjoyed our episode today, guys, if you're listening on audio, we'll be over on YouTube on Tuesday. If it's already Tuesday, you can listen to us now over there, or watch us.
Head over to YouTube and watch the video.
But as you guys know, we always have to close out with our question. And our question.
I'm still getting surprised by the questions. I like it. I'm never gonna go make the question or find the question. I like to be surprised.
This is a question that I came up with.
Oh.
Because we had a whole episode based on a question that was asked by one of our listeners. So, my question to you, or both of us, I guess, where would you put most of your money in your budget towards?
Ooh.
Just imagine you have an unlimited budget, too.
3? Can I
do a top 3.
Okay. Number 1, my dress. Number 2, hair and makeup. Number 3, photographer. Photographer / videographer.
All right.
That's mine.
I think mine definitely would be dress. I think that's something to be expected. Definitely photographer. I very much value photographers.
Of course.
I don't really care about my hair and makeup as much. I'm sure I will if I ever get married. But I think for me, venue, because if I want to do like a destination, I guess that kind of would be a big part of a wedding process. So that's my thought, is like venue. Like I want to travel somewhere for a wedding, but I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
We'll talk about that more on episode
8. Oh my god.
That sounds like a lot.
It does.
You have 8 episodes on your podcast?
Not yet. Next week we will.
Next week, yeah.
But if you guys had fun, like I said, check out our YouTube or check out our Spotify, check out our website, because we still have tickets for our event going on. So if you're in Connecticut on November 6th, please stop on by, but also buy your tickets beforehand. Don't just stop on by.
Yes, come have some brunch with us.
Yeah. Yay. Okay, that's it for today. We love you guys very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.